Hey guys, welcome back to another video here at the Ned's MMA channel. I'm your host Omar. Welcome back. Um, Thank you for joining me today. Um, Today we're going to talk about UFC Fight Night Thompson versus Holland. I'm going to be making another video on the recap of UFC 281, Bellator, Bellator Chicago, which was headlined by a rematch of Corey Anderson and Vadim Nemkov, and then we're going to cap it off with a recap of the PFL 10, which was all the championship fights. So $6 million were given out, which is awesome for those fighters. It was a big month for mixed martial arts overall in general. But that's going to be a separate video. Today we're going to talk about this Saturday's card, which starts off with Yasmin Yarogui versus Stella Nunes. Both these ladies are young, both in the strawweight division. Yasmin was quite impressive in her debut. Um, she's young, she's 23. She looked very good technically. She had really good boxing, good movement. These girls that are just coming up, this next generation of younger fighters in their young 20s are really starting to really look well rounded, very developed, not looking too stiff, not looking too, one dimensional. Yasmin really showed good combinations. She showed she's willing to stay in the pocket a little bit and fight back. And I think Yasmin is just going to be a little too much for Stella Nunes. Stella Nunes is, I believe, coming off 2 losses in the UFC, hasn't looked that impressive. And Yasmin is just a more well-rounded fighter. And I think she's going to give her a hard time. I think Yasmin is pretty much a lock. Stella's 6-3, Yasmin 9-0. Yasmin's probably going to get a decision win. Nothing crazy here, nothing too much to look deep into. I think Yasmin is just overall a more well-rounded fighter, someone that's probably going to be a problem in the strawweight division in the years to come, especially if she keeps developing herself. At just 23, she has plenty of time to really improve and become a threat. And the 115 division, which is the best women's division in mixed martial arts, a lot of fantastic fighters in there. All right, moving on. Francis Marshall versus Marcelo Rojo. Um, you know, Francis Marshall's pretty good. He looked good in his Contender Series fight, which he got signed to the UFC. Marcelo Rojo has had a tough time in the UFC. He was being given very tough matchups. First, he was given Charles Jourdain at a weight class above at 145 pounds. They gave a good showing of himself, but then he got finished, and then they gave him Kyler Phillips after that, coming off his loss. Uh, I think honestly, both those matchups were gimmies for said fighter. The UFC really likes Kyler Phillips as well as they like Charles Jourdain. Nothing wrong with that, but they both are young guys and very good and very exciting to watch. But Marcelo Rojo really did a great showing of himself. He stayed competitive in there. He would bite down on his mouthpiece and scrap and really work his ass off to get in there and get a good fight and make a good performance out of himself. Even though he's 16-8, a lot of those losses are to very good. It's very good competition, and he's got so much more experience than Francis Marshall. I think Marcelo Rojo has finally got a good matchup here against him. Someone that is very young, still a little green in my opinion. It's always hard to tell how good these Contender Series guys actually look once they're in the UFC. They look like world beaters in the Contender Series, but once they get in the UFC, it's a different ballgame. These guys are the best of the best for a reason. And I'm not saying Marcelo Rojo is like a top 15, top 20 guy in bantamweight. He's not, but he's someone that should be respected, and it's a tough fight for anyone in the bantamweight division. And I think Marcelo Rojo is gonna maybe drop a round, maybe drop the first round, but I think he's gonna take over and show Francis Marshall what a veteran really is in the UFC. And Marcelo Rojo is gonna go out there and make a good showcase for himself. He's fighting someone that is absolutely at his level. These last 2 fights were completely out of his level. No disrespect to Marcelo Rojo, but that was just the reality of it. It's kind of hard when you're fighting Kyler Phillips and Charles Jourdain in your first 2 outings when both guys are on the cusp of being top 15 in both of their divisions. So I'm gonna go with Marcelo Rojo decision. Show some savvy things in there against Francis, and Francis could bounce back. He's a young guy. These Contender Series guys maybe drop one here and there, but the ones that do stick around and make a good showcase of themselves, they stick around and end up being pretty good contenders. But like I said, going with Marcelo Rojo decision. Moving on, Natan Levy versus Genaro Valdez. This could be a fun scrap, Both of these guys, Contender Series guys. Natan Levy's coming off a win. Genaro Valdez coming off a loss to, what's his name? I just had it on the tip of my tongue. I only pull up on Tapology. Got it right here. Matt Frevola, that's correct. Matt Frevola, he got TKO'd. This was back in January, though, so my man has taken some time off. and really recovered his chin because he got dropped like 5 times in that. It's kind of crazy. It might be, round of the year up there with, Matt Schnell versus Sumadirji, which we're going to talk about here later since Matt Schnell's on the card as well. Um, Genaro Valdez is getting lit up like a Christmas tree. He got TKO'd in there, but when you look at it now in the longevity of things, Matt Favola just knocked out Otman Zaitar, flatlined him out cold, and showed that Matt Favola really does have power, really does have crack in his hands. And even though Valdez got TKO'd in that first round and he got dropped a bunch of times, he still showed heart. He still showed he has grit, and he's still ready. He's still always down to bite on his mouthpiece and sling back. Natan Levy, he kind of showed that himself too in his last fight with Mike Breedman, I believe his name is. Um, he won the first 2 rounds, had a tough third. I think he did edge it out a little bit when I rewatched it earlier today. Mike Breedman, excuse me. Um, I wouldn't put Mike Breedman at the level of Genaro Valdez, though. Natan Levy really slowed down in that third round. Breedman was doing great work to the body. Um, and I mean, Natan Levy was able to hurt him, but not really put him out. I think Genaro Valdez, he's the bigger guy. He's bigger than Breedman. He's tougher than Breedman. And I think he does have better cardio as well. We saw that in his Contender Series fight. It was another barn burner of a banger of a fight. So I'm going to have to go with Genaro Valdez here. I think Natan Levy is pretty good, not great. He hasn't really impressed me since joining the UFC. He's 1-1 so far. That's not a bad thing, but he hasn't looked exceptional. Hasn't really proved anything that he's someone to really be, on the lookout for. Like I said, no disrespect to him, but just to the performances that he's had, um, he's not gonna pose a threat like a Matt Favola does to a Genaro Valdez. But hey, man, Natan Levy could pull it off. This is one of the closer fights on the card. I'm going 60 Valdez, 40 Natan Levy, but Natan Levy could pull it out. He was shooting a lot of takedowns. Genaro Valdez is gonna need to keep his eye out on that. But he's got to be ready to sprawl every time it starts turning into a bit of a firefight. Natan Levy's gonna shoot right away, so he's got to be careful for that. Nose is a little itchy. Excuse me. All right, moving on. This is for all the degenerates out there. This is gonna be their favorite fight, and I'm honestly quite surprised the UFC didn't put this higher in their card, higher on the card. But I'm not gonna complain. Let's just leave it at that. It's Tracy Cortez versus Amanda Ribas. Tracy Cortez 10-1, Amanda Ribas 11-3. Big step up in competition for Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez, she's a good fighter, 10-1. 4 in a row in the UFC now. Hasn't lost since her MMA debut, so she's on a 10-fight win streak basically. Amanda Ribas coming off a split decision loss to Caitlin Chukagian, number 2 at flyweight, and arguably she won that fight. This is arguably Tracy Cortez fighting a top 3 flyweight in the world with the performance Amanda Ribas had against Caitlin Chukagian. I don't like this matchup a lot for Tracy Cortez, honestly. Amanda Ribas she's looks great at 125 pounds. She can take a shot way better. At 115 she was a little chinny. At 125 she's stronger. She's got more cardio. She can really make it a dogfight. And she seems to be a little faster too. Cortez, she's got good wrestling. She's got good control on top. She doesn't have the best striking. It's not that it's bad. It's very rudimentary. It's very slow. It's very methodical. It's very telegraphed. And it's not really fast. It's a little slow. She doesn't seem the most comfortable on her feet. And that's not something you want with an Amanda Ribas, Amanda Ribas is good on the feet. She was able to reach Caitlin Chukagian with some of her shots, and Caitlin Chukagian is one of the taller fighters in that division. And Ribas was a former 115 pounder. Cortez is going to have the slight size advantage. I think they're pretty close in height, but Cortez is for sure the thicker fighter, no pun intended, because she has fought at 135. I don't think Cortez has ever fought at 115. Amanda Ribas, this is her second fight at 125 in a row. She had a sole 125 fight a few years back when she fought Paige Van Zandt, and she won that fight in the first round. But I'm going to have to go with Amanda Ribas here. I think it's going to be a unanimous decision. I don't think Ribas is going to get the finish. I think Cortez has got a great camp behind her. Trains out of Henry Cejudo's gym. Those guys out there do a great job with their fighters. They always come up with great game plans. They're always very, very well respected. They're very intelligent when it comes to prepping their fighters. But I just think Amanda Ribas is a little too much for Tracy Cortez right now. And we're going to see Cortez's first loss in the UFC. But it's not going to be a big step back because Amanda Ribas is a fantastic fighter who is someone that should be in the top five of the flyweight division. Um, Moving on, Darren Elkins versus Jonathan Pierce. This one, at first, I was kind of going for Darren Elkins, but it's kind of hard to say because Jonathan Pierce is good, and he's kind of really pulled together a great win streak after his quite embarrassing loss to Joe Lozon. But I don't know, man. Darren Elkins is always gritty. Jonathan Pierce doesn't have anything really to threaten Darren Elkins on the feet, which has kind of caused Darren Elkins' losses recently. Jonathan Pierce is a great grappler, but that's exactly what Darren Elkins wants. Darren Elkins loves to grapple. He'll grapple with you all day. And I think this is going to be a very close competitive fight. I think this might be a split decision down the middle between either fighter. I am going to go with Jonathan Pierce just because he is a big guy. He is a very good grappler. He does go for finishes. And Darren Elkins, I think, has finally caught up with him a bit. If this fight took place 2 years ago, I would have leaned more towards Darren Elkins. I think Darren Elkins might win a round, but Jonathan Pierce is going to take over or adapt. Say if he loses the first round, then get the second and third. Or say he wins the first, then Elkins gets the second. I think Pierce is going to have a little bit more in the tank to win that fight. So I'm going to go with Jonathan Pierce by decision. A lot of decisions so far, but actually, up from here, I think we're going to see some finishes. So don't you worry. And then Michael Johnson versus Mark DeCasey. Very interesting fight. At one point, if you mentioned this fight 4 years ago or so, 5 years ago, this could have been a top 15 lightweight fight with the way Mark DeCasey's career was heading towards, and when Michael Johnson was back then. Michael Johnson, we all like to make fun of him. The guy could probably beat Francis Ngannou one day, but then the next day loses to Jonathan Pierce. No disrespect to Jonathan Pierce, but that's how good Michael Johnson is, and that's sometimes how not good he is. Mark DeCasey, I like to always refer to him as the Melvin Gillard of this era because he had amazing power, very, very athletic, a little trash talky, but very inconsistent, never put it together, always showed deficiencies in his grappling, even though DeCasey is far more of a grappler now than he started in his UFC career. He just seems as a dynamic striker. He does have two really good KOs in the UFC, or maybe just one. Mark DeCasey's kind of fell into obscurity, honestly, with his way his career's panned out. He had 3 wins in a row when he first joined the UFC back in 2016. Had a massive KO win over Timu Packlin. Flatlined him. I think even John Anik said that Timu was twitching on the canvas. One of those John Anik zingers. But then he loses to Jakar Close. It was not great. It was split, but okay. Then loses to Dan Hooker, loses to Nasrat Haqparast. With time, these losses have aged pretty good. Seeing where some of these guys are, Nasrat just outside the top 20, top 25 range. Dan Hooker is top 15. Jakar Close is just outside the top 15. Just grapple fucks Joe Duffy. Just has an okay fight against Lando Veneta. Gets pieced up by Fiziev, who's top 15, and then gets choked out by Rafael Alves in like a minute and 45. But then he beats Vyacheslav Boryshev, good win. Then beats Damir Hazovic, okay win, nothing great. Michael Johnson is very good when he's on. It's hard to say when he is on. He is coming off a split decision loss to Jamie Mullarkey, which I honestly thought he won. And then before that, he knocked out Alan Patrick. But like I said before that, he's losing to Clay Guida in 2021. That doesn't look good, losing to Clay Guida in 2021. So how Michael Johnson has been defending takedowns recently, how he's been working on his grappling, I think Mark DeCasey is honestly going to turn into a wet blanket this fight and just try to grapple the hell out of Michael Johnson. Unless Michael Johnson uses some veteran tactics, talks a little shit in there, gets in Mark DeCasey's head, and makes him stand and bang with him. And if they stand and bang, I'm going to have to go with Michael Johnson. But, I got to use my brain here. I can't expect Michael Johnson to just be the one that's on point, the one that knocked out Dustin Poirier, or the one that had Justin Gaethje on skates on his debut. I got to go with my brain here, and I got to be smart. I got to go with Mark DeCasey. Uh, Honestly, by submission finish, I think Michael Johnson, even though he's looked pretty good his last two fights, my man's old. He's 20 and 18, and I think Mark DeCasey is going to kind of prove a point here. He has a good big name finally in front of him, regardless of how late in Michael Johnson's career is. It's still Michael Johnson, so that's something Mark DeCasey needs to capitalize on. And I think with the way he's been performing recently, very lackluster wins. I think he needs to come out with a bang here, and I think he's going to bring it. So I'm going to go with Mark DeCasey via submission finish. All right, Clay Guida versus Scott Holtzman. Yeah, see, that's how I feel about this one. No disrespect to either guy, man, but honestly, some of these fights just don't blow your hair back. Um, Clay Guida, I think he's coming off a loss. Um, no, he's actually coming off. No, he is. He got knee barred by Claudio Pulas. I was just looking at. He's been grappling. He's been grappling a bit this year. Um, he's coming off a loss uh, earlier this year against Claudio Pulas. Got knee barred. That's why you don't go to the ground with Claudio Pulas. And Pulis kind of had an embarrassing showcase against Dan Hooker. Um, but Dan Hooker did what he had to do, stayed off the ground as much as possible. And, that kind of just shows how much Pulis needs to work on. And it kind of shows you where Clay Guida's at if he's getting knee barred in the first round. Scott Holtzman, this is a guy that kind of joined the UFC a bit late. He's a little older. He's 39. Not older. He's kind of old as fuck. No disrespect. But look who he's lost to his last two losses. He's lost to Mateus Gamrot, top 6. Beneil Dariush, top 3. Before that, beat Jim Miller. Jim Miller's on a 3-fight win streak. Dong Hyun Ma, no longer with the UFC. Then loses to Nick Letts in 2019. That's when Nick Letts kind of picked it back up. Was pretty good again. And then I think he lost to Charles Oliveira after that, Nick Letts. And then before that, 3-fight win streak, and then Josh Emmett. 3 of these 4 losses are by guys that are currently ranked. Josh Emmett's about to fight for an interim title against Yair Rodriguez. Beneil Dariush is on the cusp of a title shot. He should be getting a title shot over Volkanovski. Mateusz Gamrot, top 6 guy, That guy gives a lot of guys, anybody, problems in the UFC, in the lightweight division. So I just think Clay Guida's going to have a bit of trouble. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Scott Holtzman. I think Scott Holtzman is a strong guy. Clay Guida isn't. He's top 10 guys right now. And Holtzman has taken some time off since that TKO loss to Gamrot. I think he's going to be refreshed. He's not really going to be intimidated by Guida striking, so I'm going to have to go with Scott Holtzman via unanimous decision. I love Guida, but my man is a bit past his prime, and I don't think his grappling is going to be effective against someone like Scott Holtzman. He's pretty big and pretty strong. Clay Guida may win the 3rd round, but first 2 I just don't think he's going to have enough for Holtzman. Next up, Angela Hill versus Emily Ducat. I'm going to go with Angela Hill. I think this is a pretty easy lock. Don't let Angela Hill's 14-12 record fool you. She's been with the UFC since she was like 4-0. And when you've been fighting basically everyone from ranked 1 to 20 in the UFC at strawweight, you're going to end up with a record like that. Emily Ducat's pretty good. I don't think she's great. I think Angela Hill's just going to do Angela Hill things, stay on the outside, piece her up, be the Neil Magny of the strawweight division. So yeah, Angela Hill decision. Now we're moving on. I believe the headliner of the prelims, Nico Price, finally coming back against Philip Rowe. I'm gonna go with a Nico Price TKO finish. My man's been out for a while. I feel like this guy's a madman. He always brings it. He always has something to prove, especially when he's coming off a loss. Philip Rowe has looked pretty good in his last 2 fights. Hasn't looked amazing, especially against the quality of opposition. They're not the best. So I'm gonna have to go with Nico Price. I think Nico Price is just going to be too big, too aggressive, and with the time off, really have him recover that chin, because Nico Price does get him wars, and just that time off is going to help him, and I know he's going to want to get back in there and really get a finish. No disrespect to Philip Rowe. I believe he does have a YouTube channel. If he watches this, what's up, man? No offense. You can shut my ass up if you whoop on Nico Price. So there we go. All right, Eric Anders. Now on the main card, excuse me. Eric Anders versus Kyle Daukaus. I'm surprised it's on the main card. No disrespect to either fighter, but Kyle Daukaus was opening up the prelims for this last time out, and Anders didn't give a good showing his last fight either. So I'm kind of surprised this is on the main card, but no disrespect to either guy. Anders has headlined a few cards before, so nothing on him. this one's going to be a little hard to predict. Just because Eric Anders is coming off two submission losses, but one is to Andre Muniz, top 10 now. And to. I just had it up. Where's my brain going? Kaput. He had a split decision loss to Jun Young Park. Shouldn't have been a split decision. Jun Young Park won that fair and square. And I don't know which judge decided to give him that decision. That decision, yeah, because one judge had it for him. But that's what judges are going to do in the apex. Classic Vegas judges. Eric Anders hasn't really looked good in a long time. Kyle Daukaus has been a little inconsistent himself. He was looking okay against Roman Dolidze till he got freaking kneed in the face, and actually I think we believe he had to have a little bit of a surgery on his nose or something. That knee was pretty vicious, and the camera was right there, so you can hear that impact on the knee. And I think that was, like I said, it was the first fight on the card. I believe it was UFC Austin, and man, he ate that thing flush, and the arena was empty, so that thing just echoed throughout the arena. Right now, I do think Kyle Daukaus is a better fighter because that loss to Roman Dolidze has aged pretty good since Roman Dolidze has won another fight since then against Phil Hawes, who was really good, and we're going to talk about him next after this fight because he is stepping up on short notice. So, hint, hint. But I'm going to have to go with Kyle Daukaus. I think Kyle Daukaus is going to get a submission finish over Eric Anders. I think Kyle Daukaus is really good, underrated. When he's on, he's on. He's only lost to really good guys. He's 11-3. But you look at it, Phil Hawes, Brendan Allen, Roman Dolidze, really good guys. Really, really good guys. And he beat Dustin Stoltzfus, good win. He basically almost won against Kevin Holland, but it started off with a headbutt, very, very bad headbutt, which was no contest. And then he smoked Jamie Pickett in under a round. So it's his third fight this year, and I think he wants to get back on the win column. And he seemed in good spirits after that KO loss, regardless of how bad it was. He seemed in good spirits. He didn't take it too bad. And like I said, he's back 6 months later. So I'm going to have to go with Kyle Daukaus and Eric Anders. I'm sorry. I had high hopes for him back in 2016, but my man hasn't looked great since, probably since 2018 or 19. All right, moving on. Jack Hermansson versus Roman Dolidze. Jack Hermansson, top 10 in the world at middleweight, and Roman Dolidze, really creeping in the rankings, especially with the win streak that he has. This guy's been finishing dudes. And, he's on a 3-fight win streak against Phil Hawes, KO. Actually blew out his ACL with a leg lock at first, and Phil Hawes was basically done on that. He was a man on 1 foot, but then Dolidze lets his hand go and knocks him out. And the KO's Kyle Daukaus in the clinch with the big knee and then punches, and then beat Laro Staropoli. Not a good win, but before that, lost to Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles is a weird guy. He's on or he's not. But Trevin Giles is pretty good. And then before that, beat John Allen, and then Khadiz Ibragimov, who's not the best, but it was a good win. He knocked his ass out at 205. So he's 5-1 in the UFC. He's really, really hit his stride recently, especially this year. With 2 big wins, coming in on short notice, so I guess he's been staying in great shape, really staying prepared. And, Jack Hermansson is a good fight for him. Roman Dolidze is a good grappler. He's a really good striker with pop in his hands. That kind of gives guys like Jack Hermansson a bit of problems. Hermansson looked okay against Chris Curtis, but, he didn't look fantastic. It was a pretty boring fight. Jack Hermansson could have done a little more. But since Jack Hermansson has had a full camp, and he was still going to fight a much harder opponent in Derek Brunson, so I guess he was going to be prepared to defend takedowns and fight a big power puncher. I think I'm going to have to go with Jack Hermansson, possibly by a late submission finish. I'm going to go with Jack Hermansson, submission finish, arguably, or maybe second or third round. Not arguably. What am I saying? But Jack Hermansson. All right, moving on. Tai Tuivasa versus Sergey Pavlovich. Man, I do not like this for Tai Tuivasa coming back so fast after getting knocked out by Cyril Gane. That fight was 3 years ago, almost to the date, and Sergey Pavlovich has had 2 big knockouts this year alone. Just knocked out Derek Lewis, the guy that Tuivasa knocked out before that. So It was a bit of an early stoppage, but honestly, Sergey, it was so early in the fight. It was like 45 seconds in. Sergey's still fresh as hell. Derek Lewis is hurt. There was only more big, fast punches coming. Sergey's really quick. He's a big man, but he's very quick, and I think he caught Derek Lewis off guard with that. Um, and like I said, Tai Tuivasa's coming back just a little too soon. I wish he would be coming back for that next Australia card. I don't know why he decided to take this. He took a beating against Cyril Gane. It was a great fight. Yeah, he dropped him, but man, he was getting clubbed in there a bit. So, excuse me, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with Sergey Pavlovich just because of the quick turnaround time for Tai Tuivasa. You shouldn't be coming back 3 months after getting knocked out like that, especially getting hurt as much as he was to the body. You need to take time off. You need to take time off if you want longevity in his career. You need to take time off, especially for heavyweight. Longevity goes a long way, but if you're taking losses like that at 29, you're not going to be lasting long as some of these other guys in there. So I'm gonna go with Sergey Pavlovich by TKO in the first round. All right, Mateus Nicolau versus Matt Schnell. Top 10 flyweights. Nicolau has looked great since he's returned to the UFC. Not amazing, but Matt Schnell, arguably in round of the year against Sumaderji, he really showed how tough he was. He really showed he can grit and take damage. I've kind of had a stigma of calling Matt Schnell a bit shinny, kind of the James Vick of the flyweight division, especially by the way he gets KO'd. I'm not trying to sound disrespectful, but it almost looks comical, the way he falls and the way he reacts to getting rocked sometimes. It's like turning the power button off, the way he's collapsing onto the canvas. But he really showed he does have heart and grit in there against Sumaderji, Do I think he has the tools to beat Mateus Nicolau? It's hard to say. I think it's going to be a very competitive match. I do think Matt Schnell does have more of a danger factor. Matthias Nicolau fights very safe, a little too safe sometimes, which makes fights closer than they should. I'm gonna go with a Matt Schnell upset here. I think Matt Schnell is gonna win. Is gonna take this. I think he's gonna have a very good opening round, and I think Matthias Nicolau is gonna have a hard time adjusting a bit. Not really push on the pedal as he should, and Matt Schnell with the confidence that he has coming off the last win, especially coming out of Fortis MMA, a very good gym that's really sprung up over the past year and a half. Has really represented themselves as a team to be respected and feared with their head coach Saif Saud, excuse me. So I'm gonna go with Matt Schnell. I think Matt Schnell is gonna get the finish here against Matthias Nicolau. Honestly, I don't know what kind of finish. I think it's just a finish. I think it's going to be a sneaky good fight. I think Matt Schnell is going to bring the best out of Matthias Nicolau, make it a bit of a dog fight. But Matt Schnell via finish in the second or third round. All right, the co-main event of the evening and the banger of the evening: Rafael dos Anjos versus Brian Barberena. Fantastic fight. I'm kind of surprised a few people are writing off Rafael dos Anjos. I don't know why. Tapology seems to be smart. They have 82% of people are picking Dos Anjos over Barberena, and I agree. Dos Anjos just went almost 5 full rounds against Rafael Fiziev and was doing really good. It was arguably 2-2 going into that fifth. Dos Anjos hasn't missed a step. He still looks fantastic. He just lost to a better fighter, better striker, and he looked good on the feet. And I think Dos Anjos is better at 170 when he's fighting guys closer to his size. Brian Barberena is not a big welterweight. He's not physically imposing. He's a little flabby. He's not shredded. He doesn't have abs. Honestly, if you saw him take his shirt off on the beach, you would never expect him to be a fighter. Like, that's how he looks. But he has fantastic cardio and he has big pop in his shots. But he also gets hit a lot, and he also has shown susceptibility to getting taken down quite often. And that's right up Dos Anjos' alley. He mixes it up very well. One of the most well-rounded guys in the UFC. I think if there was a 165 division, Dos Anjos would have snagged a belt there instead of losing also those giants at 175, 170, excuse me. And like I said, if there was a 165 division, there'd be a 175. You guys would have guys in there that lost to Dos Anjos, or that Dos Anjos lost to, like Usman, like Leon Edwards, Michael Chiesa. Like those guys would be at 175. Even though Chiesa was a 155er, that dude is a fucking giant. I don't know how that guy was a 155er ever. That dude filled in so well to 170, but that's beside the point. This is at 170. Dos Anjos' chin is going to not be as compromised at 155. His cardio will be there. This is a 3-rounder, so he could really let his hands go and get aggressive in there and be and not need to take a little bit of time off here and there. But Dos Anjos has amazing cardio. The guy's always been known for his cardio. Barberena also has really good cardio, but I gotta go with Dos Anjos. He's more well-rounded. He doesn't have as much power as Barberena, but he does have better combinations. He does have better kicks. He does have better wrestling, and he's gonna be the quicker guy, the guy with more cardio. And Dos Anjos is just gonna be like, we're gonna look great again. We're gonna be like, yeah, that's why Dos Anjos is one of the most underrated guys in MMA ever. So Dos Anjos might even get a submission win, honestly. Dos Anjos, underrated grappling, man. That guy's grappling doesn't get enough credit. So I'm gonna go with the Dos Anjos win. The reason I say that is because Barberena was getting taken down by Jason Witt, and Jason Witt wasn't one of the best. You know, Barberena's on a 3-fight win streak, but it's against Robbie Lawler, you know, Matt Brown, and I believe Darren Weeks. Darren Weeks, I believe is not even with the UFC anymore. Yeah, Darren Weeks got cut because he lost 3 in a row. So, Matt Brown, split decision loss, arguably could have gone towards Matt Brown. I thought the decision was fine, but like I said, Matt Brown and Robbie Lawler, both these guys, their chins have showed deterioration. Rafael Dos Anjos hasn't. And yes, he got knocked out his last fight, but who hasn't Rafael Fiziev knocked out? Look at what he did to Brad Riddell. You know, look at what he did to Moicano. Those guys are, especially Moicano was looking amazing. So, yeah, gotta go with Dos Anjos. I don't know. I don't get why a few people are, especially more on the YouTube scene. They're picking Barberena. I think they're just writing him off a little too soon. Dos Anjos is a beast, man. That guy deserves some respect. So if you guys have Instagram, give him a follow, man. That guy's cool. All right, main event time. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Kevin Holland. Ooh, sneaky good fight. Sneaky good fight. I like this one a lot. Kevin Holland coming off a loss by Khamzat Chimaev. Stephen Thompson is not going to turn into Stevenov, Thompson Minoff. You know, he's gonna be Stephen Karate Kid Thompson. Kevin Holland is gonna be happy to go in there and strike, because that's what he likes to do. You know, he likes to get flashing there. He likes to talk. He likes to do his thing. I think Thompson, you know, for sure has a foot out the door. He has mentioned it, that he only wants to fight strikers. He doesn't want to fight grapplers. So I think that, in my mind, that means he wants to, you know, kind of have more fun fights now, kind of like what Dos Anjos has been saying. They probably both know that they can't make a run at the belt anymore. So let's just have fun fights. Let's get paid while I'm still in shape. I'm still healthy. So let's get paid a bit and let's just have some fun fights. And Kevin Holland, I still think he wants title aspirations. He really seemed pretty beat up. You know, his confidence was very shook at losing to Khamzat Chimaev. But, you know, you really can't blame the guy. He took the fight on literally, what was it, a day's notice or whatever, because Khamzat missed weight. Holland comes in at was gonna fight at Rodriguez at a catch weight of 180, so they kind of just shuffle things around. And then, you know, Kevin Holland was training for a boxer, and then he gets a grappler. You know, so you really can't hold that against him. And he's fighting a striker now. So, and then Kevin Holland said, he's like, I'm getting paid now, so I'm gonna have to go with Kevin Holland here. You know, I think Kevin Holland is gonna be in there with someone that's gonna just bring the fun out of him. You know, bring the best out of Kevin Holland and why we love him so much. So I think Kevin Holland's gonna get a TKO finish in the second or third round. I think the first and second half of the second till the finish. It's just gonna be a fun fight. You know, it's gonna be entertaining. Hopefully they're not too friendly. Hopefully, you know, because Thompson is a really nice guy, and you know he's always doing high fives. Hopefully Holland is like, all right, I get it, dude. Like, you're a nice guy. Like, it's gonna be hard to talk shit to you when he's probably gonna say some shit like that. He's gonna be like, he's a really cool guy. It was hard to want to beat up on him. Unlike Chimaev, I'll slap the shit out of him. Shit like that. But I'm gonna go with Kevin Holland. Be a TKO in the second or third round. It's gonna be as fun as it lasts. I think Kevin Holland's size and reach is gonna give Thompson problems, and I think Thompson's a little too old. He hasn't fought in a year. Yeah, he's been grapple fucked his last two fights, but that movement and speed doesn't stick around with you that long. And even in his wins, he really does get beat up a lot. He does need to take his time off after those wins that he's had over Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque. Um, so with that being, Thompson being brittle, being older, and not being as fast due to his age, I got to go with Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is still young in his prime. He's getting paid. My man's happy. So a happy Kevin Holland is a dangerous Kevin Holland. So, yep, Kevin Holland, TKO third round. But yeah, that's it. Thank you if you're still here. I try to keep this one under 30 minutes, but kind of rambled on a bit. And thank you. Give me a like. Please share and subscribe if you have not done so yet. And stay tuned because I will be dropping a MMA November recap, and that's going to be a lot more chill, a lot more just me being myself and my opinion on just the cards itself and just what I hope for in the future with some of these guys and gals that fought this month, because it was a big month, for MMA, not just the UFC. You know, um, a lot of lives are probably changed for this. There's some of these fighters in the PFL who won $1 million, so I'm happy for them. I'll get more into it in the next episode. Might be a new segment, might try something a little different. So yeah, thank you so much for being here, and have a blessed day. Good.